This is the solution for the limited interval challenge in the asynchronous JavaScript unit. So let's take a look at the prompt. Write a function called limited interval that accepts as arguments in this order: callback, which is a function, wait, which is a time in milliseconds, and limit, which is also a time in milliseconds. Limited interval should run the callback once every wait milliseconds up to limit milliseconds and then stop. Okay, so to wrap our heads around this, we want a callback invoked at a certain interval, which is going to be our wait milliseconds, until we reach the limit milliseconds. And then we want it to stop invoking. So to get into a little bit of pseudocode, what I'm first going to do is I'm actually just going to first declare my function, call that limited interval as they asked us, and that is going to have a callback argument, a wait argument, and a limit argument. So let's get into the pseudocode now that we've declared our function. So first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to declare a variable. In this case, I want my variable to be ID and assign it the evaluated results of our setInterval method, which is a JavaScript method, and that is going to accept a function. So we're going to pass in our callback and a time, which is going to be our wait time. So that is going to take care of our interval. And if I don't do anything else, this interval is going to continue on forever. So I actually need something that's going to stop this interval. And JavaScript has a clear interval method. So I'm going to want to add clear interval method, passing in our ID from our set interval. So passing in our set interval ID, and that's how we know which interval we're stopping. And this is going to clear our interval. It's not going to run anymore once this line of code runs. But we actually don't want this to happen until our limit is reached. So I'm going to use set timeout, which is another JavaScript method. And this is actually going to accept a function and a time. And that in this case is going to be our clear interval and our limit, because once we reach the limit, we want clear interval to be invoked and we want this interval to stop running. So with that being said, I'm going to get into a little bit of code. I'm going to declare our variable ID, and I'm going to use the const keyword since we're not reassigning it. And I'm assigning this the evaluated result of set interval, passing in our callback and our wait time. And our next step is going to be to make sure to clear that out once we reach our limit. So I'm going to set timeout. And because this is a function, it accepts a function, I'm actually going to need to create an anonymous function that once invoked is going to clear interval. And clear interval needs to know that we are clearing the set interval that is identified as ID. And the second argument is going to be the time, in this case, limit. So let's take a look at this test case they gave us. Right here, it looks like our callback is console logging repeat. Our wait is 100 milliseconds and our limit is 550. So in this case, we should console log repeating every 100 milliseconds until we reach 550, and that should be 5 times. So let's run this code and see what we get. Wonderful. It looks like it's doing exactly what we want it to. It's always an exciting feeling. And remember, this is just one of the possible solutions for limited intervals. So if you did it differently, that's one of the most exciting things about engineering, is that there are lots of different ways to do it.